Today, I want to tell you about a Danish composer by the name of Carl Nielsen. Now, Carl Nielsen was raised in a very poor family, but a very happy family. There were 12 kids. He was the seventh one. His father was a painter. His father was a farmhand, but his father was also the unofficial musician of their small town. His father played violin and cornet, and he would play at weddings and at festivals and dances. And so, Carl grew up in a very poor family, but it was also a very happy and musical family. He started whittling and making his own instruments, like makeshift violins out of firewood and whatnot. When he was a little bit older, he worked as a shepherd for a little bit to try and help bring money into the family, but he would bring his little instruments and taught himself how to play. He eventually would play even with his dad when his dad was out there doing his thing, and he became relatively confident in what he was doing. Now, when he was 14 years old, he left his family and he became a bugler and a trombonist for the Odense military band. And he did a great job. And this is where he gets his first formal training as a musician. Now, he has a great ear and he really learns how a band works, how the melody can go from one to the next, or maybe simultaneous. He starts learning about harmony, about dissonance, and that's actually very important because it comes back later on. But he loves it. And then later he comes back home, right, when he's done there. Well, local patrons were so impressed with this boy. And not only was he very talented, but he worked hard at it. And we want to help someone that works hard. So all these people from this town came together and raised funds to send him to college. And he went to the Royal Danish Academy of Music in 1884. He was so excited to be at the Royal Academy. He loved music, but boy, oh boy, did he feel so out of place. Here he was in this big city, and it felt so modern, it felt so fast, and it felt so dangerous because he'd been in a relatively small place his whole life. And also musically, he felt out of place. He knew folk tunes. Boy, did he know folk tunes. You tell him the name, he could play it. But he wasn't familiar at all. He had no exposure to Beethoven, to Mozart, to Bach, to any of them. He absolutely obsessed over Mozart and believed that Mozart had never written a wrong note in his life. And he, even though he was afraid and even though he felt overwhelmed, he continued with his work ethic. It was unmatched. Now, his teachers, took violin and he took composition. His teachers saw this raw talent and this drive to do the best. And so they pushed him. And he learned because he had raw talent and a desire to learn and an amazing work ethic. Now, in 1889, after he has graduated, he starts supporting himself by performing here and there. He's become a pretty decent violinist, and so he actually gains employment by the Royal Danish Orchestra. Now, they're also attached to the